President Donald Trump is deploying the National Guard to the District of Columbia, as well as he's taking over the city's police department. Tyrone Bowman live. I'll be talking about this story as reported in the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post. First, let's find out what the Wall Street Journal has to say about the takeover of the nation's capital. According to the headline, Trump to deploy National Guard to D.C. to take over city's police department. President Trump said he would deploy the National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. and place the city's police department under federal control, launching an unprecedented effort to take charge of the nation's capital. Quote, "This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back," Trump said during a news conference at the White House, where he was flanked by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and other senior administration officials. Trump also said he would call in active duty military troops if needed. The president compared the homicide rate in Washington with capitals around the world, including Baghdad and Bogota, Colombia. Violent crime in the city was down 35% last year from 2023. Justice Department data shows the lowest in more than 30 years. The data showed a decline in homicides, robberies, armed carjacking, and assaults with a dangerous weapon. You want to have safety in the streets. You want to be able to leave your apartment or your house where you live and feel safe in going to a store to buy a newspaper or buy something. And you don't have that now, Trump said, adding, going to get rid of slums. The president has escalated his attacks on the city in recent days, saying Mayor Muriel Bowser hadn't done enough to control crime and homelessness. He also increased federal law enforcement presence in the city. The administration is also deploying hundreds of federal agents throughout the district, including more than 100 from the Federal Bureau of Investigation as part of its crackdown, a person familiar with the matter said. Trump brought up Edward Corstein, who worked for the Department of Government Efficiency and was beaten after an attempted carjacking earlier this month. He previously posted a photo of a bloodied Corstein without identifying him on social media. If D.C. doesn't get its act together and quickly, we will have no choice but to take federal control of the city, Trump wrote in the Post. Under the Home Rule Act, which established the district's governing body, Congress has the power to challenge laws passed by the Washington City Council and must approve the budget, although it rarely gets involved. The president can deploy the district's National Guard, but has limited ability to intervene in day-to-day matters. Trump invoked Section 740 of the Home Rule Act, which allows the president to federalize the D.C. police when special conditions of an emergency nature exist. Under the law, the president can federalize D.C. police for no more than 48 hours unless he notifies Congress that more time is needed. Trump said he planned to notify lawmakers about his plans. The president said Bondi would oversee the city's police department. Y'all better check this out. Pay attention to what's going on, people. Terry Cole, the administrator for the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, will serve as interim federal commissioner of the D.C. police, he said. The president said he planned to direct Congress to take action to end cashless bail, which, as said, contributes to an increase in crime in cities. Illinois, New York, and Washington, D.C. have eliminated or limited the use of cash bail, which proponents say makes the criminal justice system more equitable. Trump has carried over his rhetoric about D.C. from the campaign trail. During a Florida rally last July, he said visitors to Washington could end up getting shot, mugged, raped. We're going to take over our capital, and we're going to run it tough and smart, and we're going to beautify it. We're going to get rid of all of the graffiti off the marble. We're going to fix the roads and the medians. The party platform adopted at his nominating convention states that the GOP would reassert greater federal control over Washington, D.C. to restore law and order in our capital. Earlier this year, the president signed an executive order creating a D.C. Safe and Beautiful Task Force and called for an increase in law enforcement in public areas and efforts to beautify parks and other public spaces in the city. Now let's find out what the Washington Post has to say about the same message regarding Trump. The headline reads, according to the Washington Post, crime in D.C. and nationwide is declining from pandemic-era spikes, but individual incidents can shake residents and capture the president's attention. President Donald Trump, according to the Washington Post, once again catapulted crime in D.C. into the national conversation with renewed threats last week of a federal takeover and an image of a young federal staffer beaten and bloodied after an attempted carjacking. It has become one of the most dangerous cities anywhere in the world. It will soon be one of the safest, Trump said in a Saturday Truth Social post, announced in a White House news conference on Monday that will essentially stop violent crime in Washington, D.C. He has already ordered more federal law enforcement agents to be deployed on city streets and called for teenagers as young as 14 to be charged as adults as he continues to cast the Capitol as an overturn with violent youngsters. D.C. police have made about 900 juvenile arrests this year, almost 20% fewer than during the same time frame last year. About 200 of those charged are for violent crimes, and at least 4 dozen are for carjacking. This summer, D.C. officials have also implemented stricter curfew laws for teens in response to concerns about large brows, recorded in videos then spread on social media, breaking out in communities across the city. Violent crime in D.C. has been on the decline since 2023, when a generational spike in killings rendered the nation's capital one of America's deadliest cities, plunging communities into grief and igniting a local political crisis that escalated to Congress. The decrease is part of a nationwide drop that in 2024 brought homicide rates to their lowest level in decades. This year, homicides are down more than 30% in data that the Washington Post collected from more than 100 police departments in large U.S. cities. Reports of burglaries and robberies also dipped by double-digit percentages. Not captured in statistics, though, is the grief, pain, and shattered sense of safety that followed each crime. A few hours before, 19-year-old software engineer and Elon Musk protege Edward Korstein was beaten, a man suffered a non-fatal gunshot wound. Later that day, a 27-year-old man would be fatally shot blocks from the Capitol. The following night, a 38-year-old Northwest Washington resident was killed in gunfire in Columbia Heights. None of these crimes made national headlines, but the image Trump shared of Korstein continues to ricochet online. Last week, the president described crime in D.C. as out of control, with young thugs and gang members who are randomly attacking, mugging, maiming, and shooting innocent citizens. I have more to say about that in a separate video. D.C. Mayor Muriel E. Bowser refuted that image on Sunday, noting that recent drops in crime, while adding that the city could use the federal government's help with other law enforcement priorities, such as adding more prosecutors and judges in the city. If the priority is to show force in an American city, we know he can do that here. Bauer, who had been silent since the president initially threatened to take over the city, said of Trump in an interview on MSNBC, but it won't be because there's a spike in crime. FBI data collected by the police shows juvenile arrests nationwide have largely been dropping since the 1990s. In 2024, in 2024, the rate was about 439 juvenile arrests prior to 100,000 juveniles, down 7% from 2023 and 5 times lower than in 1997. Juvenile arrests are down in D.C. this year, but the trend doesn't hold everywhere. In Baltimore, police made 1,377 juvenile arrests in 2024, a 47.4% increase from the year prior, according to FBI data. In New York City, Juvenile arrests were up 10.9%. In 2024, compared with 2023, are continuing to rise. New York police made more than 5,200 arrests from January through June this year, up almost 10% from the same period this year. And Chicago is seeing an even sharper rise, but the juvenile arrest count there remains less than half of the 2019 figure. U.S. Attorney General Jeanine Pirro, the Trump-appointed prosecutor who handles most of D.C.'s adult crime, said the nation's capital shields violent youngsters from consequences. She joined the president last week in advocating that more teenagers, including those as young as 14, to be funneled into the adult system. And D.C. suspects as young as 15 can be charged as adults. You know what? Then this should be for everybody. It can't be marginalized to one group of people. You see, you got to understand coded language thugs, hoodlums, etc. This is referring to black people. Well, white people commit as many crimes in the juvenile sector as black people. And if you're going to charge young black people at the age of 14 and 15 as adults, then you need to charge white people who commit the same heinous crimes as adults as well. It just can't be a one-sided perspective here. And I pay attention to everything that's going on. That's why they hate the term woke, because when you are awakened, you can read, decipher, interpret, pay attention to everything that's being said, and scrutinize everything that's being said at the same time. So it's not just going to be an anti-blackness thing here, that you want all black people locked up and in prison for privatization purposes so they can continue to make billions of dollars and exploit it, then put white people in the same prisons, from the same age category. Now, if you're going to have justice, if you want safe streets, it should be from them as well. Eduardo Ferrier, public, and Jean Pereira, whatever. If you notice, the entire administration is stacked with only Republicans. Democrats can do no good. How much good Democrats do, they're never going to be considered being anybody doing any positive things. Really, they just want a Republican-controlled nation, and it's not going to happen like that. Eduardo Ferrer, policy director of Georgetown's Law Juvenile Justice Initiative, said, "It was important to keep in mind that the vast majority of DC's teenagers are doing the right things. Decent, law-abiding young men and women, they don't get any credit for anything. They don't get applaud for their educational attributes. They don't get any accolades for going to school. They don't get accolades for working. They don't get accolades for staying crime-free. It's always on the opposite end. And then that's why people like me have to be able to speak up for the positive young men and women in America that are doing the right things all the time. And for that minority of young people who commit serious violent crimes, the solution should not be charging them as adults," Ferrier said. You know, this brings me to mind, whatever happened to the young man who comes from a very rich, wealthy family who murdered in cold blood the now dead CEO of United Healthcare? You notice he's not in the spotlight. They're not talking about him. There's no press coverage about him. They don't write about him. And he point blank executed him. And he was on the run and got out of New York City. How did he get out of there? Who helped him? Who aided and abetted him? And they found him sitting in a McDonald's restaurant, and the person who called the police can't even get the reward for turning that murderer in. What, is he going to get preferential treatment because he comes from a wealthy family? And because his lawyer has orchestrated several PR stunts? They're all wearing the same shirts and ties and colors and things of that nature. He should be considered a violent and dangerous person as well. So Ferrier, he pointed to an influential Centers for Disease Control study from 2007 that found youths charged as adults were 34% more likely to be rearrested than those who went through the juvenile the juvenile justice system. The evidence shows that this is a policy that may sound tough on crime, but actually undermines public safety, Farrier said. Well, the nation's capital is in Washington, D.C., and it should be safe. There's no doubt about it. Washington, D.C. should be a safe place. The nation's capital is there. The president works out of there. I don't know if he lives there, but he works there. You got mega politicians constantly in Washington, so get it safe. Since early July and 11 p.m., a citywide curfew has been in effect for those 17 and younger. It runs through August. Local leaders also implemented stricter curfew laws for teens in response to concerns about large prowls, including at the southwest waterfront and in the U Street corridor in North Washington. The city has had 4 juvenile curfew zones this summer, locations with more restrictive rules from 8 to 11 p.m. The night Crossline was attacked, a curfew zone was in place in parts of southwest and northwest Washington. There have been no reported violations of those curfews, according to D.C. police. Hours after Crossline was attacked, residents in the nearby block were rattled, awake by shouting on their usually quiet tree-lined street. One person described peeking out their window and seeing a rowdy crowd of youngsters, some in masks. Later, they saw a young man beaten and bloody. When DC police did arrive, all parties had the scene and the officers had found nothing. According to a department spokesperson, when asked whether there were other incidents in the area in the pre-dawn hours of last Sunday, the spokesperson said there were unfounded reports of suspicious groups. However, officers did not locate any such groups. Well, when the incident occurred, why didn't they look at the film footage from all the thousands of cameras they have in every city? It is just that simple. If you want to find out who's committing crimes, go get the film footage. Look at it. Zoom in on it. And then go find the culprits. What is all this equipment for and surveillance equipment for that's in the cities if it's not going to be used? Use it. Find the individuals who are committing the crimes and bring them to justice. It shouldn't have been hard to find the thugs, the hoodlums who attacked the federal worker. But the week's incident on reserve residents, even before the nearby attack of Corstein, captured the president and the nation's attention. Quote, now this is what this says. This is a safe city, but overhearing and witnessing gang threats and then watching the camera footage of the thuggery is disturbing. No, it's not a safe city. How can it be a safe city if you got gangs running rampant and thuggery happening all over the place? DC is not a safe city. Let's not pretend here. And you know what? As loud as the outcry will become, the nation's capital should be taken over and get stuff under control. Point blank. And if you live there, you want to stay a safe city. And that should be in every city. You know, I'm for justice, point blank. I'm an advocate for justice. And I don't care what color folk are, what race they are, what religion they are. If you're acting up, I'll call it out. Nobody should have to live in fear. No one should have to be holed up inside their homes and can't come out and go to the store in peace, or go to work in peace, or go to church in peace, or whatever it is that they do that is lawful and abiding. So the resident, speaking on the condition of anonymity over concerns of personal safety, the crowd of teens he saw were roaming the street and appeared to be checking for unlocked cars and things to steal. Well, I agree with that. The language Trump uses to describe DC is wrong, he said. But clearly, there's something bad going on that needs to stop. Well, ain't nothing y'all can do about it. The man's in the White House. He's the president. He holds all the cards. They got all the power. He's going to do exactly what he wants to do. So complaining is not going to happen. So that's the perspective from the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal. Coming up next, I'll talk about the D.C. mayor and what she had to say about the National Guard and the military being federalized to take over D.C. Thank you all for watching. Never surrender. Never quit. What's happening, Troy? All right, y'all, everybody, have a nice day. See you in the next video.